20th Century Fox for making it so that my videos have to be 15 frickin' minutes. This is so stupid. Oh well, come October, it'll be fine. Getting back to some stories. Hello everybody, Niklsun here, and welcome back to Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. So, my last episode I talked about the ever-growing complaint about the term reshoots and what it really means. The next episode I'm going to be talking about here, this is another thing that's been bothering me because I've been getting a lot of questions about what does this mean, what does that mean? And on top of the questions, I watch a lot of podcasts. All right? I do have some free time when I'm at work, or not necessarily when I'm at work, but just right after work. I live very far away from where I work, so I don't generally have a lot of time to come home. And so when I'm watching a lot of these podcasts, and I'm watching people who, these podcasts get a lot of views, and I don't know, maybe it's just my own expectation that the people who are on these shows have a very high production quality. These people are clearly very intelligent, but yet they get a lot of their information wrong. And it bugs me. It really bugs me, especially some of these ones that are specifically Marvel-based, like a Marvel-based podcast. They solely talk about Marvel, and they solely talk about movies. So when they get a lot of this information wrong, it bugs me because it's like, guys, it doesn't take very long to do just a little bit of research on this crap, all right? It maybe takes you a half an hour, okay? And if you tell me that you don't have a half an hour, you are bold-faced lying to me. You are lying. If you don't have a half an hour, I'm sorry. That's a lie. That's a lie. I don't believe you at all. And it's clearly evident when it comes up on some of your news because some of the times when it comes to these things, and I'm trying to be as vague as I can because I don't want to call anybody out. They're not doing anything wrong, okay? They're just not doing everything that they could be doing for this. And I know it just sounds like I'm just a complaining fan, but that's not what I'm trying to come off as. It's just when you hear certain bits of information and they're clearly wrong, but they're more comic book correct. That's what bugs me because the movies and the comic books are not the same. They're not. The comic books are the inspiration for the films. And so when they come out and say like, oh no, this is 100% what it's going to be, and if it's not, I'm going to hate it. Okay, well, that's just a dumb attitude to have, but that's your attitude to have. So when it comes to the deal between Sony and Marvel, when it comes to Spider-Man, that's what I'm here to talk about today. So how does Sony and Marvel, or how do Sony and Marvel share this character on screen? It's actually very simple when you break it down, okay? Very, very simple. A lot of people have said, well, it's Sony's movie and all this kind of Marvel doesn't really have anything to do with it. False. That, you know, it's more of a Marvel film and Sony doesn't really have a lot to do with it. More correct, but still false. Basically, I'm just going to break it down for you. Sony has the rights, the on-screen rights. They don't own them. They have them. They have the on-screen rights for the character of Spider-Man and all of the Rogues Gallery and every character that is related to and was introduced in a Spider-Man comic. They pay for the movie, okay? They write out the budget with the producers over at Marvel. They write out the budget. They figure out exactly how much it's going to cost. They deal with the marketing. They deal with all this kind of stuff. It's their film. It is. They produce it. They make the profits for it. They pay for it. Marvel makes the movie. Marvel doesn't really see any money from it other than the ability to utilize the character in their films. And they also, this is the part that bugs me on some of these podcasts, the characters are able to go between the films. Proven case, pointing case. Robert Downey Jr. is in Spider-Man. Now that's kind of the exception to the rule. It's Robert Downey Jr. If he wanted to be in Spider-Man, Marvel would basically just say, okay, we need to talk to Sony and figure out how the hell this is going to work because this is happening. Like, we can't stop this. It's RDJ. We can't stop this. So outside of that, like, the people have been talking about what about this character appearing in this movie? And this character, oh no, it can't happen because it's a Marvel character and it's a Sony movie and all that. No, horseshit. Horseshit. They can choose any characters they want. The deals just need to be made. That's the only thing that's stopping them. It's just the deals. Marvel and Sony now have the shared capability to utilize any character that they want to. Technically speaking, if Marvel has a good enough pitch and Sony isn't doing anything with them right now, Marvel can go to Sony and say, hey, listen, if you guys don't have any plans for Chameleon, we really feel that he could work in the next Black Panther movie. You know, I mean, that wouldn't happen, but I'm just saying that they could go in and do that. Or they could say like, hey, you know what? It'd be a little bit on the nose, but Black Cat might have a really big role in Black Panther. So, I mean, they could go and do that if they wanted to. They're not going to with those specific examples. I was just using them as they were the first ones that popped into my head. But they have that ability if they wanted to. You know, I mean, they could have Kraven the Hunter go after Black Panther. Movie fight. Okay, I need to call out Screen Junkies on this because this really pissed me off. There was one fight, and they didn't. Not only did they not specify in the argument for the fight, but also in the arguments for the fight, they didn't even bring this up. I think it was not last week's, but the week before that. It was what Marvel character should show up in Black Panther, except for Winter Soldier. The other two choices were friggin' X-Men characters. They can't. Under no circumstances can they show up. Now, if they had a preface that was saying, what Marvel Comics character would you like to show up, regardless of what the rules are, what Marvel Comics character would you like to show up in Black Panther? Because they chose Storm and Wolverine. Those were the two characters that they chose. It's like, what? No, and then I was watching it and I immediately went, Roth won, because Roth Cornet, one of the fighters, had chosen Sebastian Stan's character, chosen the Winter Soldier to show up, because, spoiler for Civil War, he's the one that's most likely to show up. But then the other two came out and said Wolverine and Storm, and I went, Roth Cornet's one, because Roth is going to come out and say neither of them are MCU characters, neither of them can show up in the movie. Mine's the only one who can show up. I don't even need to fight for him. I just won the round. Wasn't even mentioned, okay? It wasn't even mentioned, because that is one thing that can't happen, okay? That is where Marvel podcasts are correct when they say that any character from X-Men or the Fantastic Four cannot, under any circumstances, show up. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. There's no deal. Fox is not going to make that deal. There's no way that Fox would. They're successful right now with their films. Now, if they go 4 or 5 movies in a row with having big, huge bombs, like not making profit, then they'll at least consider the fact of selling the characters back, or at least waiting a little bit and retooling it. But when it comes to how Marvel and Sony share, like, Marvel makes the movie. Marvel makes the Spider-Man film. Kevin Feige is an on-set producer. The only real person from Sony who's an on-set producer of Spider-Man is Amy Pascal, and she's not even with Sony anymore. She was the head of Sony Pictures, and after the leak, she unceremoniously was relieved of her duties. And she stayed on as a producer of Spider-Man because she was one of the spearheads of the deal between Sony and Marvel. And so she stayed on as a producer of the film. So, looking at the fact that nobody really from Sony is involved on set with the production, at least that we're aware of right now. Matt Tolmach is definitely not. He's an EP. He's not on set. And I hope that he stays away from it, because he's too close with Avi Arad. And Avi Arad is a madman moron. He's an idiot. Get him away from it. I don't like it. I don't want him there. I don't want him being a part of that film, because the dude only cares about selling toys. He doesn't care about the movie being good. He wants a costume to look cool so he can sell a toy, because he wants to make more money. He's a businessman. He's not a filmmaker. And that's why I don't want him near it. Matt Tolmach is starting to become a businessman as opposed to being a filmmaker. Kevin Feige, while he is a businessman, he is a filmmaker. The dude knows what movies need to be. He knows the formula. He has cracked it. And he has almost perfected it. And so that's why every Marvel film that comes out is generally received very well, because he knows how to make a film. And so Sony knows that. They trust Marvel with that. That's why this deal went through, was because Sony, look at Amazing Spider-Man 2. Yeah, it made a lot of money, but it was a failure. It had a huge stink around it. Not a lot of people liked it. Now you look at X-Men 3, The Last Stand, is the highest grossing movie, but it's also one of the worst reviewed of all the X-Men films. I'm not talking Rotten Tomatoes. I'm talking about actual people reviewing the movie. And it's one of the worst reviewed films out there for the X-Men franchise. But it made the most money because it came off of one of the arguably the best movies in that franchise, which was X2. You look at Amazing Spider-Man. Amazing Spider-Man was received fairly well. I mean, not as well as Sam Raimi's versions, but Amazing Spider-Man 2 came out and made more money, a little bit more, not much, but a little bit more, than The Amazing Spider-Man did. But it was so poorly received, which means that if Amazing Spider-Man 3 had come out, if they had spent more on the movie, which is what they were planning on doing, it would have made less, because it was less well received. And so Sony knew that they were in a predicament. They needed to go over to Marvel, and this is what made the most sense. Now, this is where it can get tricky. Okay, so Marvel makes the movie. It is an MCU movie, but Sony still has final say over the film. They can come in and say, nope, I don't like how that works. I don't like how the character was used here. I don't like how the villain was done here. This action sequence here doesn't work. This, that, the other thing. Whatever the case was, they can come in and say that. Looking at what's happened with Sony over the last little bit, especially with what's coming up next month, and so far, I'm sold on Ghostbusters, okay? I have a feeling, and I don't know why. I can't tell you. I can't explain it, all right? So don't ask me. I can't explain it. I have a feeling that Ghostbusters is going to be good. I have a feeling it's going to be very fun. It's going to be very lighthearted. And basically my reasoning is because Paul Feig's movies are terrible to market. The trailers for a lot of his films are not overly funny, especially in comparison to how funny the movies are. You know, I mean, you look at the trailers for Spy. The trailers for Spy were not very good, but the movie was hella funny. The movie was ridiculously funny. A lot of it hindered on Jason Statham's character because he was ridiculously funny in that movie. But that is going to be a potential big bomb for Sony. If that's the case, they have issues with what Marvel is doing with Spider-Man, I don't know if they would raise them. I think they're going to go, you know what? We may have a problem with that, but they know what they're doing. They've shown they know what they're doing. And so we're going to trust them. Now, that might only happen, depending on the final outcome, the final product, that may only happen on Spider-Man 1 or whatever they're going to call it, or Spider-Man Homecoming. I still don't like that title. It's a tricky situation. It really is. But Marvel basically has the full reins to do with the character what they want. Sony pays for the movie, but they make all the profits. As far as I'm aware, Marvel might make a little bit, but they don't really make a lot. The main reason that they did this was because they wanted the ability to use the character of Spider-Man in their films, and also wanted to make sure that that character had final footing on its own home ground. And so that's essentially where we are. But Sony's already botched Spider-Man twice. Marvel has really only had one kind of misstep with Iron Man 2, and it wasn't really even a misstep, it was just rushed. That was the only real thing that you can fault that movie for being, is rushed. It's still a good movie, it just has again, it's the Marvel problem of a failing villain, and not enough of a focus on its hero. But again, it was more of a sequel, and it was more just to keep the Avengers lineup being set up. So, but when it comes to Spider-Man Homecoming, we're going to find out come next July. I think it's July 7th. Of 2017 that movie opens. Now, we're probably going to get our first trailer for it in December, around the big holiday season trailer extravaganza, what they always do every year. It'll start at the end of November, and it'll go all the way until about the second week of December. And so we'll get our first footage around then, maybe the beginning of the year, but I'm assuming we're going to get it at the end of the year. So when we do hear more information about Spider-Man and anything involving Marvel or anything of that sort, I will definitely update you guys on here. Well, that'll about do it for us here on Coming Soon Movie News with Niklsun. Thank you so much for watching. You guys have been a great audience. Go ahead and click that subscribe button there in the bottom corner. You get updates whenever a new video is posted. You can also follow me on Twitter or Facebook at Niklsun, Niklsun, for all of your movie updates. And also like our Facebook fan page at facebook.com/movie news with Niklsun. If you ever have a topic or question like I've talked about on the show, go ahead and email me at movienewswithniklsun@gmail.com or put a comment in the comment section. But until next time, you guys enjoy the rest of your day. Take care.